Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in our Choose Hope series of author interactions that we've been conducting since August 2020. In our 40th author interaction today, we prefer to choose hope under these unprecedented and unpredictable times. I'm Neeta Nijay, and with me is my co-host Shreya. So our guest of today definitely needs no introduction, but I have to do the needful. Sudha Menon, she's the eminent author of 5 very successful nonfiction books, Legacy, Fiesti at 40, 50, sorry, and Gifted, Devi, Diva, or She Devil, among others. She's a former journalist, she's a columnist, she's a motivational speaker, she's a writing coach. The list can go on. She's a model, she's an actor, and she's a founder of very successful workshops, Get Writing and Writing with Women. So, Sudha, it is our immense pride to welcome you today on our forum. Thank you for agreeing to come.
It's a pleasure. I have, if there is one principle that I have followed in the last few years of my life, it's always be there for another woman, support the things that women do and be there for them. And, it's not for a reason that we say, create a village, create a community. I really, truly believe that women together can make so much of change.
Absolutely. I totally agree. In fact, you are the first author for our new series, which we have launched recently, which is Choose Hope.
Okay.
So what does choosing hope mean to you, Sudha? Especially in today's scenario and in the current situation, my second question also was related to this, that what do you think is the role of art in literature?
So choosing hope, I think, is so very important, especially like you said, in these pandemic times. For the last, if you look back at our lives since March last, it is like, I have never seen anything like this. My mother talks about her mother who used to speak about the terrible pandemics that that generation had seen. But we have seen something which is like quite extraordinary for us, quite unprecedented. And for the last several months, if you look at the newspapers, if you look at the media, if you, anywhere, you meet somebody and the only conversation is COVID and the only conversation is the death of loved ones. And over the last few months, I felt I've been depressed on and off, like listening to this. If you're human, you can't help being touched by all these stories. Sometimes you feel morose, sometimes you feel angry. And then I realized that human beings, what is the single biggest strength? It's their resilience. It is their refusal to be cowed down by things. And for me, then I decided that I would choose hope over everything else. Of course, you have empathy and compassion and, gratitude that you haven't lost anybody. You have compassion for the people who have, but I think hope is the one thing that will keep us moving forward. Just look around you. If we, like, when I go on social media now, I don't read the bad news. I read, look at all the young people who have got together, social influencers on media, so many young people in communities who have just come together and set up helplines. They're providing food, free service, all sorts of things for perfect, total strangers. That is hope for me. What is hope for me is today I was on social media for 5 minutes and I have a friend who's I have not met in many years, but she's posted a picture of her mother in Kolkata making her annual pickles, on the terrace. That is hope. Like that is showing that lady is hopeful of a tomorrow when she and her family will have pickles. It is not like you have given up everything and just said, now we are all, we are all done for and we are all going to die. No, it's not that. Hope for me is, picking up the phone and speaking to my sister in Mumbai who's looking after a mom who's very ill. And she lives in hope that her mom will be all right, that our mom will be all right, and that we can all celebrate her next birthday. So I think hope is the one thing that we all have to keep alive in our minds. And we will survive this and we will conquer this. And next year when you interview me for something, it will be about why that was the right decision.
I totally understand. And I'm sure, because I think you're in the middle of 2 books you're writing. So I'm sure definitely next year,
yes,
we'll be meeting physically, definitely.
I hope to be there, yes.
But tell me, I mean, in the current circumstances, and you are so much into literature, you're into writing, everything. So what do you think, as I just mentioned before, what is the role of art in literature? According to you, in these circumstances, how does it help?
I think very, very crucial. I think art and literature is very crucial at a time when every other sense we have is like totally flooded, saturated with bad news and grief and rage. If you see, there is so much rage around us just now because of the helplessness that people are going through.
Yes.
And I think if there is one thing that can heal our souls, it is music, it is the arts, it is reading a good book. Though I'm not saying read a big philosophical book or read some great literature. I'm saying read something that brings makes you laugh or makes you smile. Read a book which you read while growing up and made you happy. Just read, but a book can heal. And I have seen this, like when my mom is ill, like you said, art and literature, and how does it, when my mom is ill and going through a bad phase, we'll put on music for her, and some old forgotten movie, songs that she grew up listening to, and we have a shared sort of memory about it. So I'll play that music and I'll see her coming back to her, old self, even if in whatever possible way, but there is a cheerful face then there is a spark in her eye. The same thing happens with books. You read a book, even if it is 10 pages a day, I think it will make a lot of difference in your outlook. Every single day, read a few pages.
Yeah.
Try and finish a book, but I know we are all struggling with work from home and so many other things, and with illness around us, it's hard. But a book can heal the world. I truly believe that.
I totally agree. And in fact, in these times, I really feel that, books and literature can be sort of like an escape and something
Absolutely.
that can, sort of have another total imaginary world where we can reside in while this
Totally.
world heals. So I think that is also
Totally.
a beautiful.
When I was a young child of maybe 8 or 9, I was a very shy, reclusive child, and I had no friends because I was so shy that I could never reach out to anybody and say, "Will you be my friend?" So I grew up in a very 4 siblings, but I was still, very lonely because friends are a different thing and siblings are a different thing. You want friends, and I had no friends. And then I made books my friends, and the more books I read, the more I just kind of retreated into those books. And that, like you said, a different world. So that was my escape. That was a world that I created. So yes, it's something that, especially I think in this time, our children should read more books, give them more happy books. And our seniors, they have been so, they have been all so much confined to their homes. And it is sad when I see this, the super seniors around, wherever I live, like my mother sometimes tells me that I have not stepped out of my house in 1.5 years. And when is this going to end? And so a book is the answer, I think. Give them something to read with them, and it will change everything.
Very true. Absolutely. I totally agree. And to start with, I mean, this is the book that I'm going to talk about, which has really touched my heart. And I must say, being in my early 50s myself, your book, PST at 50, really, really attracts me. It is part funny, as we all know, and part thought-provoking, especially for women who want to make 50s the best decade in their life. And you make that Reddit 50s look so fabulous and so much fun. So what made you write this book, which is definitely quite a breezy read, I must say, and what was the inspiration behind this book for you?
So, the inspiration is a lot of things, but more than anything else, it is my wanting to tell the world that don't expect me, don't expect me to disappear under the carpet because I'm 50, because that is what usually happens to most women, that by the time she's in her late 40s or early 50s, society has started sending her these messages saying that, okay, your time is ticking, and you are now done with all your roles. You have given birth. You've been a wife. You have given birth. You have raised the children. You made a career. Now enough. Now then the messages come that why are you working so hard? Oh, why are you so ambitious? Now it's time for your children to get married. Then your grandchildren will come around. You have to look after them. It's basically a woman has an expiry date, and a woman's life has an expiry date. A man's doesn't. And I was getting very annoyed with this. You go to a mall, and the very painfully young sales girl there will not want to sell you red lipstick. I mean, my daughter tells me sometimes, why are you like so obsessed with that red lipstick? I say, because for me, that has become symbolic with what youth stands for. The young salesman, one sales girl at a mall of a very, at a brand store of a very, very famous brand said, ma'am, at your age, aunties wear brown. At your age was 50, and 50 is nowhere close to. I'm full of life. I have so much more to achieve in life. There are so many things I'm doing with my life. So how dare you tell me that my time is up and I have to just disappear? So I wrote Feisty at 50 to tell the world, look, this is the best part of my life. This is the most empowered part of my life. So if it doesn't suit you, just too bad, but this is my life and I'm going to have the most fun with my 50s.
I loved the concept of the book, specifically because, as Mama was saying, I can attest to the fact. I have a very good example in front of me with Mama. Like, she starts a new job with so much of and so much of ambition and so much of energy. Even this series, she has way more ambition than I have about it. So I think that speaks a lot about being feisty at 50. So that's a very
that's a thing. That is what I want to say, that most people think 50 and end of life for a woman. Now she has to just stay at home and generally mope around and wait for the family to come home, cook for them and all of that. But 50s is like really so much more. A woman has done all of it. She has nothing more to prove, and she has everything to gain. She has the time. By the time most women are in their 50s, they have so much more confidence. They have a voice of their own. They have money of their own, and they're ready to go out and have a shot at everything else that they have wanted to do in life. So stop this ageism. Just because you're 50, you're not dead. Like I think
I totally agree that 50 is all about being you. It's all about being exciting. It's all about being adventurous.
Chase all those dreams.
Yes, and chasing all those dreams. So
yes.
I know you're into multiple activities and everything. So what is now your life post 50? So what is it that you're really...
my life, and even if, like, I hate to talk like this at a time when everybody is, going through a bad time, but like, if you set the pandemic aside, if that is something that has happened to all of us, but otherwise, I think I'm having the most fun in my 50s. Suddenly it is like I have done everything that there was to be done. I have had a great career as a journalist. I've written very, very, books that have given me so much fulfillment. There have been dreams in my mind that I've kept a secret. They've all been rattling around in my head, and I've not told anybody that I want to. One of that was, doing something in the entertainment industry. And a year and a half ago, I just decided, okay, this is the time. If I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So I had a go at it. And I must tell you that I've done ads for some of the biggest brands in this country today. And I like to think that there too, I am making, I'm getting work and also sometimes choosing work that will make a difference. Like, I refuse to play roles where women are shown in that stereotypical thing, Mother's Day, gift your mother a washing machine, or gift your mother a dishwasher, or, all of those kind of things I politely decline. I tell them, look, give me more empowered roles. Like, this doesn't, in my younger days, I would have said it more brashly, but with age comes wisdom. So now I say, look, this is not how the real world is. This is a very offensive thing, that when Mother's Day come around, you have to have ads which show you giving your mother a juicer, or showing your mother, gifting your mother a washing machine. It's offensive. That's not the only thing that a woman does. That's what everybody should be doing in the house. And so, yes, I'm doing a bit of that. I'm doing a bit of acting. I'm having the greatest fun, taking online classes, speaking assignments,
workshops.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just move on to the next question. So I read your book Legacy when I was, I think, 14, 15 years old. And
wow.
And it was Mama was part of the book club, and it was her recommended list or something. I read it. And I still remember it very clearly because back then, whichever book I used to read minimum of 2-3 times. So I remember it very
Ah,
clearly.
that's
And
nice to hear.
so I wanted to ask you that what made you, curate all those letters? By the way, if anybody has not read it, this is the book. I still have it with me after all these years. And
Great.
so it's a curation of letters from famous, diverse celebrities who have come together and written to their daughters. So, what made you, how did you get this idea of curating these letters, and how was the process like?
So this was actually a very personal journey for me. I remember when I was a little girl, my grandparents used to live in Kerala, and we were in Mumbai growing up. And I had a set of three great aunts who just loved all of us to death, really. And I had my favorite great aunt in that. And she would every month she would write a letter, very friendly letters, no kind of lecturing or anything, but in her own wise ways, in the things that she would say in those letters, inland letters. I wish I had kept those letters. When you're young, these things don't strike you. Now I'm yearning to see those letters. I wish I had kept them and stored them. But all those letters, I think, made a difference to who I was growing up to be. All of these three aunts were very independent women. They chose not to get married at an age where, at a time when marriage was like you get into 16 and you marry. But these three women chose to be on their own. They lived in our ancestral home. They had their own careers. And I'm just full of admiration for them. So those letters were always at the back of my mind. And then when my daughter was turning 21 that year, I wanted to write her a letter would, which would talk to her about the things that would be important, the things that would be useful for her to know as she was setting out on her own journey. I wanted to tell her about the importance of dignity and in our lives, the importance of self-respect, the importance of having something to do of your own, and how she should have values that would carry her through the journey of life. And then I did start writing that letter, and let me confess here that it was one of the hardest things to do, because I found that it took everything out of me to put those things into words. And then when I read that letter, it was too sentimental. It was too much full of, I thought that she's going to say, this is mama giving me another bhashan. So I said, no, this won't work. At 21, you don't want to be lectured by your mother. So I said, let me make this a more, let me expand the horizon of this book, and let me make it a bigger project, and let me talk to the people I admire and ask their opinion of what they think about, what are the important things for a woman to know so that she can lead a fulfilled, content, successful life. And it took me a year and a half, but I think at the end of that, I found that it had transformed me, and it reinstilled my belief that at the end of it all, at the core of who we are small, little, simple things, that we all want the best things to happen to our children. We are all concerned about the well-being of our parents. We want our children to be safe. We want them to be healthy. So these are like everybody I spoke, from Mr. Narayana Murthy onwards to everybody I spoke, Mr. Prakash Padukone, who I spoke to about his two daughters, Deepika and Anisha. All of them talk to me about the same thing. So it is not about money in the bank. It is about how you raise your children, or how you were raised, and what do you want them to be. So you want them to be honest. You want them to have, you want them to be independent. You want them to be fearless. All of these things. You want them to be respectful of elders. So all of this very universal kind of things, and it remains one of the most fulfilling projects that I have done, because, like you said, it is such a source of joy to me when you said that you have read this book 3 times, and that you have that copy. In a world of instant gratification, if you still kept that book, that means a lot to me. And that means that book has made a positive impact.
Yes, it definitely has. I mean, I will go as far as to say that my friends and my family can attest to the fact that I keep writing letters. So
Wow.
your book and Anne Frank's book, Diary of a Young Girl,
Yes,
where she
yes.
writes the diary entries.
Yes.
These two books have inspired me to write mails or to write letters to my friends.
Wow, thank you so much. That's so good to hear.
So definitely a big positive impact.
Thank you.
So
Tell me, Sudha, that this book that you've written, Feisty at 50, has a totally different way of writing. It's humorous, it is funny, and it is so different from normal stories that you write.
Yes.
You write about inspirational stories. You wrote Gifted, and then you wrote about such inspirational that one feels very inspired reading your books. So
Yes.
how was it challenging to write Feisty at 50? It must have been a different
It was
ballgame altogether.
I must say that I had the most fun writing this book, because this was all the other books that I write. I have been considered an author who always writes things of a very more mature tone, of a more serious tone. And in real life too, people think I'm a very sort of deep person, a person who's more serious but that's actually not who I am. Inside of me, I'm very funny. Inside of me, I have funny stories going around in my head all the time that I want to write. And one day I'm really going to write so many funny stories. They're all building up here. I love I just loved writing this, because all of this, I have not written anything there which is not true. Like I have fictionalized parts of it, but most of it has been experienced either by me or by my sister or by my friend. But the stories in Feisty are the stories of every woman. I'm sure you have gone through these experiences 100%. If you have been a woman in India, you have 100% gone through experience, if not all of it, most of it. And so I said, this needs to be told. And instead of saying it in an angry kind of tone, I'm going to say this in a funny manner, but still it will bring home the message. I had the most fun. It was scary, because I was treading into areas where fools tread where nobody else goes. So my friends told me, why do you want to do this? This is like too personal. You're putting your personal life out for public consumption. I said, I'm already an author, and then you're already in the public zone. And I think being 50 has also made me fearless. That is one of the things about 50s, that you sort of are liberated from all the fears and anxieties that you've had when you're younger. You no longer care if nobody likes your face. It's as simple as that. So I said, let me just have fun with this book. I wrote it, and I'm so happy to have written it, because my inbox 3 years after this book is written, even now I get letters from women who have read it saying that it has just changed the way they looked at their lives. Otherwise, there was one woman who wrote to me saying, I'd given up on my life, because I thought, what is there now, in my life? My children are, grown up and gone away. My husband plays golf, and I have nothing to do. And I'm always told that be at home, or, no, she said that I felt irrelevant. And she says, after reading your book, I felt that, no, I'm not going to disappear. I'm going to live my life. And she says, I'm now living my dream. So those kind of things make you believe that you should follow your instinct. And, with me, the instinct about this book was say it as it is.
Very lovely. I think that's a very, very strong message to everyone out there. And that's why people have reached out to you. So coming to your second book, Devi, Diva or She-Devil. So Maricom said to you in an interview that giving up a dream was never an option for me. And, which is a handy prop for working women to accomplish a tough balancing and, between home and workplace. So what was your experience like, and what was your inspiration for this book specifically?
For writing this book, yes. I think it is again my journey as a very, very young woman trying to make it in a very, very hard life. I was a journalist at 20. At 23, I was a mother, and I was a very, very ambitious journalist. And by the time I was 40, I had worked with some of the country's biggest publications, and it is every day is like a struggle. You want to do these things, you want to be a good wife, you want to be a good mother, you want to do so many things. But also, like, this book was written because from the perspective of a woman who wants to make her career happen and still have the rest of it. And so I decided to talk to women who are in these positions of influence, women who can make a difference in our life, women who have gone there, walked on paths untrodden and survived to tell the tale. So I decided to check with them what are the things that they do that helps them, live their dream, every part of their life, in every part of their lives, how they are fulfilled. And it was an amazing journey. Like, Mary Kom was somebody that you just read about in the newspaper, but to sit with her and listen to her tell her story, there was an occasion where she was training for the London Olympics, and I was interviewing her in Pune, where the camp was for the training. And evening, one rainy evening, I sat with her in the lobby of the hotel she was staying. So she came back dripping with sweat after 8 hours of training from the stadium, and she came straight into the interview. She didn't have any starry air. She didn't say, I'm tired now. She said, no, I have given you this time and let's talk. And we just sat there and talked. And there was this point where she told me that, when from the time I was 8, or whenever I first said that I want to become a boxer, from there till today, she says, every stage of my life, I've had people say, oh, you'll never make it. You're a woman. She said, when I was a little girl, they would say, oh, you're a girl. You're never going to become a boxer because you're a girl. That was the only reason she couldn't make it. And she said, I would tell those people in the village that, can you see me? I'm in the field here, standing in knee-deep water, knee-deep water, helping my father work in the field so that he can put food on our table. So if I can do this, I can do boxing. Then when she became a little bit, successful, and she started making a name for herself, they said, oh, but you'll not have a woman's life at all. You will not be able to experience marriage or children because no man wants to marry a boxer. And she said, look at me now. I have 3 children and I'm married to my best friend and I've had an amazing journey. So she says at every stage, she had this story where she says, as a young girl, a young woman who got married to her friend and went into her husband's village. She says almost the entire village ostracized her because they just couldn't stomach that there was this girl here who had none of the boundaries that other women in that village experienced. They could not stomach the fact that she was a world famous boxer and that she was living the life of her dreams, and her father-in-law and her husband were actually allowing her, to do this. And she said, it was so toxic and it was so depressing that I decided that I would give up boxing. And she says, I would have, but my father-in-law and my husband would sat me down one day and told me that it is not your job to listen to these cynics and naysayers. It is your job to go out there to that boxing ring and practice every day so that you bring laurels for yourself and for this country. And she said, I decided then that if they have so much faith in me and they don't care, why should I let the cynicism of other people color my life? And I think that is one of the lessons that all of us
very inspirational
deep in our heart, that never allow anybody else the power to color your dream or control your life. It is your life. You choose to live it the way you do.
Very, very true. I think that is a very inspirational message and very motivational to even, especially young women who are just starting out.
Absolutely.
And the 3 books that we have discussed today, I would recommend everyone to go out and definitely buy and read them because as you can see, ma'am herself is so motivational and inspirational. Imagine the books.
Thank you.
So I think this has been a lovely, lovely session. I wish we had more time. And we could definitely sit and maybe physically next year have an interaction on your first
future books. So. I hope the world heals and I hope we are all out and about and I can come to your city and launch my book.
Yes. You love the city. It's a beautiful city.
I'm sure. I'm actually a traveler, but for the last 1.5 years, you know what happened to all of us with that.
Yes.
So as you said that we need to keep hope and things will improve and they have to improve and we need to travel and perhaps we do a literature festival in your city. We come to your city very shortly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thanks everyone for joining and thank you Sudha for giving us time.
Thank you very well. Thank you very much for having.
Thank you so much for joining everyone, especially ma'am, for taking out time from your busy schedule. I wanted to say that please keep wearing your mask and social distancing, because COVID is not over, and we need to be especially careful now and avoid the third wave.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Bye.
for everyone joining.
Bye. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.